All right, let's dive into a topic that honestly trips up a lot of people. How do you actually handle foreign currency loans under the accounting standard IND AS 23? It sounds complicated, but it's really a fascinating puzzle with some pretty clever rules. So let's get right into it. So just picture this for a second. A company needs to borrow a big chunk of cash, maybe to build a new factory. Now they have a choice. Do they borrow locally from a bank down the street, or do they look overseas for that loan? This is the puzzle that businesses are trying to solve every single day. And really, that entire puzzle boils down to this one single massive question. Do you take that foreign loan, the one that often has a much lower interest rate, but it comes with this huge, unpredictable risk of currency fluctuations? Or do you just play it safe with a local loan that's going to be more expensive, but at least you know exactly what you're getting into? Let's just break down that trade-off. A US dollar loan, for example, might offer this really tantalizingly low interest rate, but, and this is a big but, if the rupee weakens against the dollar, the real cost of paying back that loan could absolutely skyrocket. On the flip side, the Indian rupee loan is the exact opposite. The interest rate is higher, sure, but you know exactly what you'll pay. No surprises. It's that chance at saving a ton of money that makes the risk of a foreign loan worth it for so many companies. So, how does accounting deal with this mess? Well, this is where IND AS 23 comes in with a pretty elegant solution. Instead of just treating those wild currency swings as some totally separate random event, the standard gives us a way to actually integrate them into the cost of borrowing itself. And this right here is the whole key to this concept of an adjustment to interest costs. Basically, the standard says, look, that exchange rate loss you just suffered, that's not just some random market thing. It's effectively making your cheap foreign loan more expensive. It's part of the deal you signed up for. It's part of the borrowing cost. If you get this one idea, everything else is going to fall into place. And this, right here, this is the golden rule of IND AS 23. It's basically a sanity check. It says, sure, you can count those exchange losses as a borrowing cost, but only up to a certain point. And what's that point? It's the cost you would have paid if you had just taken the safe local loan in the first place. It's a logical cap that stops things from getting out of control. Okay, so that's the theory, but how does this cap actually work in practice? Let's see it in action. What happens when the currency moves against you and you're staring at a loss? We're going to use a really simple example. Let's say a company has a $1,000 loan. At the end of year one, the currency has weakened, and now they're looking at a pretty significant exchange loss. And boom, this chart illustrates the rule perfectly. The total loss is 10,000 rupees. But, and here's the key, the company can't just add all of that to its asset cost. Based on what we call the interest differential, basically the savings they got from the cheaper loan, only 2,800 rupees can be capitalized as an adjustment. The rest, that has to be expensed right away in the profit and loss account. Okay, I need you to remember this number, 2,800 rupees. This is the maximum loss we can treat as a borrowing cost for this period. This specific number is the key that's going to unlock how we handle everything that happens next. But accounting is never quite that simple, is it? Now we get to a bit of a twist. Markets are volatile. What goes down can definitely come back up. So what happens if the currency suddenly swings back in your favor? Exactly. So in year two, the company doesn't have a loss, it has an exchange gain. So do they just get to book that as a nice, clean profit? Well, not so fast. IND AS 23 has a very specific rule for this, and it all links back to that loss we just capitalized. This table explains it all. Let's look at scenario A. The gain is 2,000 rupees. Now, since that's less than the 2,800 we capitalized as a loss last year, that entire gain has to be used to reduce this year's borrowing costs. It's like you're paying back the adjustment. But now look at scenario B. Here, the gain is a massive 6,000 rupees. The rule says you can only reverse what you previously added. So the adjustment is capped at that original $2,800 rupees. And the extra 3,200, that gets booked as a normal gain. Makes sense, right? All right, deep breaths, everyone. We're about to tackle the final and, frankly, the most complex scenario. This is where a lot of people get tripped up, but it's an absolutely critical concept, especially if you're studying for an exam. What happens if you've already paid back part of the loan? And I'm not kidding. This is a classic exam question. All the logic we've built so far needs one final layer when the loan principal itself changes. It all comes down to keeping things proportional. So let's just say that 60% of the original loan has now been repaid. That means only 40% is still outstanding. This one simple fact completely changes how we apply that reversal rule we just learned about. The logic here actually follows a really clear path. You start with that original 2,800 rupee loss that we capitalized way back in year one. Now, since only 40% of the loan is even left, it's only fair that the cap for any reversal is also reduced to 40%. You do the math, and our new maximum adjustment is just 1,120 rupees. And there you have it. That's our final answer for this tricky scenario. Even if the actual exchange gain was way bigger, the amount we can use to reduce our borrowing costs is now capped at this new, prorated figure of 1,120 rupees. It's all about making sure that adjustment only applies to the part of the loan that's still active. Okay, let's zoom out for a second and just summarize the core logic of what we've been talking about. What are the absolute key things you need to walk away with from this whole process? If you remember nothing else, remember these four things. First, exchange losses can be capitalized, but they are always capped by that interest differential. Second, if you have gains later on, you have to use them to first reverse any losses you previously capitalized. Third, that reversal is also capped by the original loss amount. And finally, if you repay part of the loan, that cap needs to be adjusted proportionally. That's it. That's the whole standard in a nutshell. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Is this intricate set of rules a perfect reflection of what's happening in the real economic world? Or is it just the most logical, most practical compromise that accounting can come up with? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me, and I really hope this helped make the puzzle of IND AS 23 a little less puzzling.